quiet afternoon was shattered by red and blue lights flashing through the streets. Two officers approached her car, confident, dismissive, sure of their authority. To them, she was just another face, another statistic, someone they believed they could treat however they pleased. But what they didn't know, the woman in handcuffs wasn't just anyone. She held a power they would soon come to fear. A black lady calmly steps out of her car as officers aggressively cuff her. Her expression is unreadable, her silence piercing. The screen fades to black, leaving only the sound of the cuffs clicking shut. What happens when justice finds its voice in the most unexpected place? They thought they were untouchable, but the tables were about to turn in a way they could never have imagined. This isn't just a story about a traffic stop. It's about how the very system they thought they controlled exposed their prejudice for the world to see. Let's know where you're watching this from. Drop a comment below and stay with us, because what happens next will make you question everything about power, authority, and justice. Every year, millions of black Americans find themselves on the wrong side of the law, not because they've committed a crime, but because the system they live in is rigged against them. Studies show that black Americans are arrested at more than 5 times the rate of white. This isn't just a statistic, it's a reality, a harsh truth. The officers who arrested our protagonist didn't see her as an individual, they saw her as a stereotype. They assumed they knew who she was and how she would react. But they couldn't have been further from the truth. Meet Grace, a woman who has spent her life breaking barriers, quietly, fiercely. She's a judge, a career woman, someone who's worked harder than anyone could imagine to rise above the weight of a system designed to hold her back. But her journey to this point was no easy feat. From the moment Grace was a young girl, she fought to be seen as more than just a face in the crowd. Raised in a world that judged her before she could speak, she learned early that every achievement came at a price. Against all odds, she made it. She became a lawyer and eventually a judge. But what no one could have predicted was the moment the system she'd worked so hard to be a part of would come full circle, confronting her in the most chilling way. Grace knew the stakes. She knew what this moment could mean, not just for her, but for every person who's ever been underestimated, overlooked, or oppressed. And she wasn't about to let it go unnoticed. It was supposed to be a routine drive home. Grace had finished a long day at work, her mind still lingering on the cases she'd presided over. But as the flashing lights appeared in her rearview mirror, she knew this wasn't going to be routine. A slow-motion reenactment of the car pulling over, the red and blue lights reflecting on Grace's composed face. The officers approach, their postures rigid, their hands hovering near their belts. The first officer knocked on her window, his tone sharp, his words laced with impatience. "License and registration, now." Grace complied, her hands visible, her movements deliberate, just as every black parent teaches their child to do when faced with authority. The first officer speaks. "Why are you out this late? You look nervous." The second officer speaks. "Step out of the car. We'll decide what's going on here." Grace steps out of the car, her expression calm, but her eyes reflecting the weight of the moment. The officers exchange smirks, as if confident in their control of the situation. Pulled over for a broken taillight, a minor issue. But for Grace, it quickly became a moment of humiliation. The officers searched her car without cause, their voices laced with the kind of authority that assumes no accountability. One officer speaks to her with condescension, the other chuckles quietly. Grace remains silent, her body language composed, even as the cuffs snap onto her wrists. What the officers didn't see was the depth behind her silence. They didn't notice the sharpness in her gaze or the calm control in her demeanor. To them, she was just another easy target. But who was really in control of this moment? Imagine being in her position. Would you stay silent? Would you fight back? Or would you wait, knowing the truth would speak louder than anything you could say in that moment? The sound of the cuffs tightening, and the officer's voice saying, "We'll see how this plays out." Do you think the officers had any idea what they'd just set into motion? Would you have handled the moment differently if you were in Grace's shoes? Let us know your thoughts. Weeks later, the same officers found themselves walking into a courtroom, not as witnesses, not as enforcers of the law, but as defendants. A charge of misconduct had been brought against them after their treatment of Grace during the arrest was flagged by an onlooker's video that went viral. The officers enter the courtroom confidently, their expressions smug as they glance around. One officer whispers to the other, "This'll get tossed. It always does." But as they took their seats, the air shifted. The chatter in the courtroom faded as the judge walked in. And there she was, Judge Grace Thompson, calm, composed, and wearing the robe of the very system they had tried to misuse against her. Grace steps up to the bench, her expression unreadable. The officers exchange uneasy glances, the color draining from their faces as recognition sets in. For a moment, the room stood still. The officers who had once spoken to her with disdain now sat before her, their arrogance replaced with discomfort. Judge Grace calmly called the two. "Officer Carter and Officer Daniels, you are here today charged with misconduct, including unlawful search and abusive behavior during an arrest." Grace pauses, her tone measured. "In this courtroom, we uphold the law. Not personal biases, not assumptions, but justice. Let's proceed." The pans across the officers' faces, their previous confidence replaced by unease. One nervously adjusts his tie, the other avoids eye contact. For Grace, it wasn't about revenge, it wasn't about humiliation. It was about showing them, and the world, that justice is impartial, even when people are not. In that moment, the courtroom wasn't just about misconduct charges, it became a symbol of accountability. Grace didn't raise her voice, she didn't break her composure, but her very presence demanded the respect they had denied her before. And as the hearing began, it was revealed that the video wasn't the only evidence. Grace had calmly documented every step of their actions during the arrest, from the unlawful search to the degrading comments. She had allowed the system, flawed as it may be, to prove what she already knew. Fairness isn't optional, it's required. What would you have done if you were in Grace's position? Does accountability truly exist without fairness? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and share this story to spark conversations that matter. In the weeks that followed, the courtroom became more than just a venue for a legal battle. It became a symbol of accountability. Evidence presented during the trial left no room for excuses. The video, Grace's detailed account, and testimonies from witnesses painted a clear picture of misconduct. The officers' defense crumbled under the weight of the truth. Shots of the officers sitting silently, their confidence replaced with regret. The gavel strikes as the verdict is read aloud. This court finds the defendants guilty of misconduct, abuse of power, and unlawful actions during the arrest. Justice isn't just a concept, it's an obligation. No one is above the law, including those sworn to uphold it. The officers were sentenced to mandatory community service in underserved neighborhoods, retraining on unbiased policing, and disciplinary action within the force. For them, it was a stark reminder that power without accountability has consequences. A montage of the officers performing community service, interacting with the very communities they once overlooked, and attending sessions on racial equity. For Grace, justice wasn't just served, it was redefined. She didn't let anger cloud her judgment, nor did she use the system for revenge. Instead, she used it to demand what every person deserves: fairness, respect, and dignity. This case wasn't just about two officers or one woman. It was about exposing the cracks in the system and showing that change starts with holding people accountable. It's a reminder that authority is not immunity and that seeing beyond stereotypes can change lives. At its core, this story is about fairness, courage, and integrity. It's about standing tall in the face of injustice and showing the world that dignity isn't something you earn. It's something you're owed. What does justice mean to you? Have you ever witnessed a moment where someone stood up for what was right, even in the face of overwhelming odds? Share your thoughts in the comments, and let's keep this conversation alive. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel to help spread awareness about the fight for equality and accountability. Where are you watching from today? Let us know. Justice begins when we confront our biases and treat every person with dignity. Change starts here with us. Thank you for watching.